Greetings, television fanatics. Filmholmes here for another rendition of Too Much TV. Now, I'm kind of cheating a little bit because this show has actually not aired on TV yet. And the only way you can even see it is just by purchasing it online on a certain website. But the creator of the show is a comedic genius, and really a genius all around when it comes to writing, acting, directing, everything else. I'm talking about the great Louis C.K. And if you haven't seen his stand-up, it's not for everyone. It can be very vulgar, which I like, but not vulgar in a way where it's like Andrew Dice Clay, you know, who I can't fucking stand, or comics like that, who just be vulgar and they think, oh, well, that's funny. Or like Martin Lawrence when he used to do stand-up. I can't stand shit like that. Louis C.K. is very smart, and he can be vulgar, but he's just fucking hilarious. One of his stand-ups is called Hilarious, and it's not because he is, it's because of a story he tells. But if you've never seen it, his stand-up live at the Beacon Theater, live at the Comedy Store, oh my god, hilarious, chewed up. I know I'm missing probably a couple more, but you can download them on his website. The specials, the video, and the MP3s for $5 a piece. That's a pretty damn good deal. And there are a few available on iTunes. But regardless, he decided, and one day I'll talk about his show on TV, Louis, which is a fantastic comedy show. And I've seen the first few seasons, but it's been a while. I need to rewatch them, but I loved it. They're all on Netflix. But it looks like he's not going to continue with that show. In private, he decided to fund and make a show called Horace and Pete. And it was more of a dramatic show. It's very funny, but it's more about the drama. And I heard it got great reviews, a couple Emmy nominations, which for a show that didn't air anywhere is really cool. And I read about it, and I read the reviews, and I was like, okay, I might get into this. So I took a chance, and I bought it. And you can buy the entire series, or season, I guess. It's just season 1. He may make more, but I really doubt it. But it was about $31. You know, not horrible it's 10 episodes, but, you know, a lot of them are like an hour long. So I think it's well worth the money. And if you're a Louis C.K. fan, definitely worth the money. But I went ahead and bought it, and I watched all 10 episodes, and I watched them within a day and a half. It's that damn good, folks. It really is. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about today, is Louis C.K.'s Horace and Pete. Okay, Horace and Pete, directed, written by Louis C.K., is basically about a bar owned by Horace, played by Louis C.K., and Pete, played by Steve Buscemi. The cast in this is fantastic. Their sister is Eddie Falco. Jessica Lange plays a bar patron. Alan Alda plays a character that is completely just an atrocious human being, but so likable at the same time. It's a character I don't think he's ever played before, at least that I haven't seen, and to me, he steals the show whenever he's in it. A lot of the bar patrons are people that you'll recognize. Stephen Wright plays this hilarious guy with these one-liners, and he's really funny. A lot of special guest stars that just come in for these quick things. Very, very funny. But the show is about this bar that's been owned by this family for like 100 years. It's always been owned by a Horace and Pete, usually brothers. And they own the bar, they run the bar, and there you go. And they even live upstairs. They have like an apartment upstairs in the building. Well, the bar has never been like a huge success, but it's in the family. But Edie Falco, the sister of Horace and Pete, wants to sell the bar. Their father, Horace, died the year before. And old Pete, played by Alan Alda, who was, you know, Pete with that Horace, you know, doesn't want to sell it, but she does. And since she's one of the kids, kind of one of the first girls of the family, maybe the very first girl around, she has a say in what happens, and she's gotten a lawyer. That story kind of goes throughout the entire season. There's also the story of Steve Buscemi's character. He's basically crazy, you know, to put it in a non-articulate way, and he's probably the best character on the show. He's very interesting. He's a very likable character. You love him, but when he's off his medication, he can't control himself. He's insane, and he's got a story arc, and there's a scene of him in a doctor's office that I can't explain too much about the show. I don't want to ruin it, but it's heartbreaking, and it's so realistic. But that's what the show basically is, and it talks about a lot of controversial issues in the bar because people talk, and it's very well done, very well written by Louis C.K., such a brilliant writer. It's such brilliant writing, it makes me jealous in a way, because Louis C.K. has a tendency to write very funny dialogue, but he can write conversations so well, and these conversations go on and on and on and on and on, but they never get boring. And even when they're really serious, and he makes things so goddamn uncomfortable. So uncomfortable. But it's so clever in how it's uncomfortable. And I'm glad it made me uncomfortable. It should. That's what great art is supposed to do, because it'll make you think. But the show, it's weird. It's shot like a sitcom, like a regular 5-camera sitcom on a soundstage. And the sets look very sitcom-like, and it just adds to it. And it's so cool, and the sets are so great. And I can't say too much about the show, but please go and buy it. At least buy the first episode and try it out. If you're not hooked after the first episode, then you're not going to like the rest. And you only wasted $5. It is so good. And I think he's already made back all the money because he funded this himself. As far as I know, almost all himself. And it was expensive to do. And I'm glad he did, because if you're an artist, you're going to have to fund your work eventually, and you may not make that money back. But it doesn't matter, because you still got to do what you wanted to do. And that's what he did. He just wanted to make this, and I'm so happy he did. It inspired me. And my favorite episode out of the 10 is probably episode 3. And it's when Laurie Metcalf plays Horace's ex-wife. And she literally, the camera's just on her for a good 5, 6, 7 minutes, it feels like, talking. And she holds that, because she's such a great actress. One of the best supporting roles ever was her as Jackie on Roseanne. She won 3 Emmys for it. And she was nominated for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Drama Series for Horace and Pete, but unfortunately didn't win, which I think is a shame, but congrats to whoever did win. But even besides that episode, it's just her and Horace. The whole episode, just 2 people talking. And at first, I was like, okay, she has a problem, and she goes to Horace for it. And it's like, okay, but as the story progresses, I got really into it. I'm like, well, what happens next? What happens next? And then you find out what happened. It's like, holy shit. It's real life situations, but also kind of absurd situations in a way. And it was so well written, and I love that episode. If I could just have one episode out of the 10, it would be that one. Excuse me. But there's so much, like Steve Buscemi, his Pete, he doesn't want to sell the bar because that's really his home. He was in an insane asylum for a long time, and he came out and basically just went to work at the bar. And that's his life. He doesn't want to sell it, but he tries to date somebody, and that episode is really uncomfortable. Like, the date at first is very uncomfortable, but then it gets really good again. And then later on, when she has dinner with his family, it's awful. It's hard to watch. But I mean, throughout the series, people die. The last episode you actually get to see, I think it was the last episode, or the second to last episode, you see the lives of the Horace and Pete beforehand, and you get to see the current young characters as kids, and so many great supporting roles, guest acting roles. I mean, Louis C.K. knows how to cast a damn show. It was shot beautifully, and it looks and feels like a sitcom, but it's really serious subject matter, but also really funny when it wants to be, especially when talking about current issues. And it is very vulgar. If you don't like that, you're not going to like this. It's very vulgar, very realistic, and that's why I love it. And from beginning to end, and there were a few times it almost made me cry, as well as making me laugh until I pissed my pants. I just want to get the word out. I'm sure a shit ton of people have seen this show, but please, if you can afford it, just go buy the whole series. But if you're iffy about it, not a huge Louis C.K. fan, buy the first episode, give it a try. It's not that Louis C.K. needs the damn money, but this is art. This is what TV is supposed to be, in my opinion. I really hope it does air eventually on HBO or Showtime, or even put on Netflix, because I want more people to see this. And if he can somehow do a second season, I don't know how, and the way it ends so much like a play. And it does play out, not like a sitcom, but like a play. I mean, these scenes sometimes go on without a cut for minutes. It's like the movie Birdman. It's just one shot continuously, and even if it does cut between cameras, you can tell it's the same shot. And like the opening scene, there's not a word said for 5-6 minutes. It's just them opening up the bar, and yet you're entranced by it. It's amazing, and I hope one day I can make something half as good as this. But Louis C.K.'s Horace and Pete, and it's just called Horace and Pete. It's not Louis C.K.'s Horace and Pete, but Horace and Pete, frankly, for 10 episodes, I give it a 5 out of 5. There are a few things that don't add up. The stuff with Louis C.K.'s daughter in it, they didn't really have an ending to it, but that's also where the brilliance of his writing comes in, because life doesn't always give you endings. Sometimes it rarely does. And there are some other little story arcs that don't really go anywhere. But, again, that's life. It feels more realistic that way, so I can't fault it for that. I can't take off points. 5 out of 5. Please go and watch this if you can. Please. I'm so happy that I bought it. It was well worth my $31. I will rewatch the series many times over the years. And once again, Louis C.K. has just hit a home run and proves how much of a talented motherfucker that motherfucker is. So anyway, that was Too Much TV. I'm Filmholmes. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.